Hi, happy February. Today I thought I would go over the books that I read for January, since that seems to be a thing that people talk about here as well. And since I have a Goodreads account and I rate my books on there, now that I have a YouTube channel for books especially, this is going to make it a lot easier. But the first one being Mothers Who Can't Love, a Healing Guide for Daughters. I grew up with an abusive mother. I just recently was finally able to get out of that situation, and I've been living on my own for a year. And so there's been almost a year, 4 months away from here. So there's been some healing that needs to be done, but therapy is not the most accessible, both financially and accessibility wise. So while I would like that to happen down the road eventually, because Lord knows I need that again, it's a little bit hard to do that right now. So I've had some friends of mine who have also grown up in similar ways recommend some books, and this actually was not one of them, but I did post on an Instagram story that I was reading it, and somebody said that it was a really good book, and I ended up not finishing it. Yes, I'm one of those people that will rate a book when I don't finish it as long as I read enough of it. I'm not going to be one of those people that rates it after like a chapter. But I gave that book 2 stars, mostly because I just couldn't get into it. I felt like the types of abuse that I experienced was just not any of the types that the author here was describing. So as I'm trying to read it and learn something from it, it's just I couldn't connect with it. So the writing's not bad, it's nothing like personal, it's just can't relate, so it wasn't helping me. If you're someone who had to deal with mostly or strictly solely emotional abuse from your mother, you might be more able to connect with this book, but for me, it was all of them. But even with the emotional stuff, it still wasn't the type of emotional stuff that was being discussed in the book, all the stories and stuff. So, yeah. It's not you, it's me. The Offering is a new book that has recently come out that had Spicy Book Talk, the Facebook group, and probably TikTok in general, all up in their feelings. It was brewing a storm because people really love their dark romance, and I am someone who is very wishy-washy about the dark romance because I think people can write it wrong. Even though, I mean, some of it is like there's not really a way to write it correctly and in a way that isn't very damaging. But the thing with The Offering was a lot of it was just lacking editing. Like, I don't think anybody edited the book. There's just chunks of writing, and in this chunk of a paragraph you have dialogue from multiple people in one chunk, and I hate that type of formatting. It hurts my brain. So I couldn't even really get into anybody character-wise because it was just, I don't know who's saying what, because it's just all a big mess. The Stockholm Syndrome of it all, and from other reviews that I had read, this was very disrespectful to the band Sleep Token, which is what this book is essentially inspired by, and some of the things involving the members, she wrote it into the book but then changed the meaning of some things, like some scars on the body and stuff, and it's just not really a good look when you take real life people, put them in your book even though you're changing the names and stuff, and then write them out to be really bad people who commit crimes and bodily harm to people. I don't know how I'd feel about that. Not good. I was a little over halfway through that before I decided enough was enough. Stranded was next on the list. I gave this one a 2. It would have been a 2.5 maybe. I actually really liked the book because it was a book that was supposed to be all about CNC, aka non-consensual consent, which it can be very tricky to perform in real life. You know, you really gotta talk it out with your partner before you do all that. And I mean, it's done as well as it can be in a little dark romance book that's all over TikTok. But it was actually doing really well. You know, the character saying, hey, I'm, into this. You just gotta consent, and then, here we are. And then the girl was into it. And I was like, okay, cool. Until the scene where the main character, who is the male main character, gives her name's Ivy. The guy gives Ivy water or something, and as it turns out, it's contaminated with the drug. So when she takes it, she's unconscious, and then he basically violates her afterwards while she's unconscious. And that ruined the whole thing. That completely broke CNC rules, because she can't actually consent to being unconscious against her will because she doesn't know that her water's been contaminated. And that really rubbed me the wrong way. And again, it's very hard to write dark romance and all these types of kinks because the spicy writers here on TikTok that are well known on TikTok, oh, it's risky. It wasn't working here. Otherwise, everything before that was, I could get into it. I got into it. But after that, I was just like, it's starting to really rub me the wrong way. And now moving away from spicy dark romance, we have The Girl in Cabin 13. I cannot remember how I found this book. I think I found it in my ads on my Kindle because I don't have the ad-free version. So, you know, the ads pop up when my Kindle's sleeping. And I thought it seemed interesting, and it was a mystery thriller, and it's been a while since I've really read much of those, and that's a genre that I grew up with, and it sounded pretty interesting. I can get into reading about a woman in the FBI and, you know, trying to find some missing people or whatever. Unfortunately, it just wasn't working for me, especially because Emma was written almost like if she were supposed to be like a grandma character. The way she spoke was just as if she was so much older, and I'm not sure how old she's supposed to be. The main guy that she meets, I think, is like 34, so not much older than me at all. And then she said that she's older than him. So my guess is she's supposed to be maybe in her late 30s, early or mid 40s. But I don't know, it was just written really weird. And I really couldn't get into it, and then just kind of started to get bored. Did I finish it? I think I started skipping around a little bit, and then I think I know who ended up being the murderer by the end of the day, but okay, do you want down? And then going back to romance. He's not my type. I actually really like this one. I think I've found my new book boyfriend in Halsey. I mentioned this before, like my very first video, I want to say. But for the past year and a half, when I read the spicy romance books, I had been skipping most of the plot and just trying to find the spice. But now I'm trying to be really good at not doing that and actually reading the whole book. So for some reason, it's been hard for me to get into a lot of plot in these books. The writing doesn't work for me. The characters don't really work for me. Maybe it's the first person back and forth point of view that's not working for me. But I got into this. Halsey I got into, and I was pretty much imagining him as David Castaneda. What did I write in this review? I said the only thing that really seemed to get on my nerves was how sort of formal that Halsey and Blakely would talk, but maybe it's just me not used to people talking out their emotions and saying loving things. I mean, that's probably true. Yeah, I think, yeah, there was like weird talking. I feel like for some reason people either write their characters way too juvenile or make them way too old. Or not, it's not that they make their characters too old, it's that they'll have them be in their mid-20s and yet they talk like your 60 or 70-year-old grandpa. I don't know. Also them communicating and stuff. The only thing I really didn't like about this book, not necessarily a deal breaker, but why does everyone have names that start with P? The girl's ex-boyfriend, and then the guys on the team, her best friend, Pacey, Posey, Perry, Penny. Like, why? I think somebody said that there was a sort of like unspoken rule in writing where you don't have so many characters with the same name, or you just don't have even two people with the same letter at the beginning of a name because it gets too confusing. I know shows like Charmed, The Power of Three, Prue, Paige, Phoebe, Piper, that's four, but if you've watched Charmed, you know where we're going here. And then, of course, the family members, the other women in the family, all have names that start with P. I feel like, though, that's easier to do in a show. Because you have faces to names, and it's just easier that way. Obviously, writing a book and writing a TV show or a movie are two very different things. But in the book, it was just not working for me. And I just kept getting confused with everyone. To be honest, I could only imagine who Blakely was gonna be and who Halsey was gonna be. Blakely was gonna be me, Halsey was gonna be David Castaneda, but and I didn't hate the spice, and normally dirty talk when it's written in spicy books I hate. I feel like it's so cringy. I don't even like to hear it in real life, if I'm gonna be honest. But here it actually wasn't too bad in that book. There might have been a moment or two where I was like, okay, please don't say that ever again. But overall, it really wasn't too bad. I think the other thing that I can think of that I did not end up writing in this review, but I think I read it in others, was that maybe the ending was a little bit rushed. Also would have liked to know more about Blakely's job and seeing her do her job more. Like, I don't know, do we get the same amount of Halsey playing hockey and stuff and doing his job? I don't know, it seems to be like this thing where this happens a lot anyways in writing, entertainment, movies, books. The woman is really into her job and, you know, all of that, but oh, now she's going to ditch the job completely because the love of her life. I could get it. I could understand it. I've never done that personally, but I just want to know more about her and her job a little bit, I guess. And then I read my very first Colleen Hoover book ever, Maybe Someday, and there is a review that I uploaded last week on that if you want to go check that out. I read it because people told me that there was a deaf character in it, and so I read it, and I don't want to spoil it for you because you can go watch the video, but I gave it a 2.5-ish, and there's a long, hefty review on it on Goodreads. As far as everything goes with deaf representation, good job. Really, the hearing people being typical hearing people when it comes to being annoying, spot on. The only thing that I didn't really care for was the back and forth, constant back and forth emotional cheating. Again, that's stuff that happens in real life. I can't say don't ever write that. Still doesn't mean it's not annoying to read. And I was just kind of bored of the characters. I actually didn't think the writing was very bad at all. At the beginning I did. At the beginning I thought the writing was so flippin' juvenile. But then after that I was like, I don't hate this. I don't think I like it enough to read the next book. However, I did end up reading another Colleen Hoover book, and that was Verity. I actually liked it. I gave it a 3. When I write it out in the review, I say 3.54, but I think I'm leaning just to a good 3. This is definitely different from Maybe Someday. There is like romance in this, kind of, but it feels more like obsession and less than any sort of romance. There is some cheating in this book, you know, with the wife being comatose, or pretending to be, rather. The only thing I wish would have been different with this book, I imagined everything a little bit different in my head. First of all, I imagined there being like an actual showdown, like a Lifetime movie showdown in the house where the wife is going to be, where Verity is going to be like chasing Lowen with, you know, a big old Michael Myers knife, right? And it would be this big showdown and whatever. And then I also thought that the husband was going to be the one that tried to murder Verity or whatever. No, it was just sudden and anticlimactic what ends up happening to Verity when she goes bye-bye. But I'll tell you what, the twist got me. The twist got me. I don't know how I didn't realize this, but she was going to run away. Was the manuscript fake or was it real? I mean, obviously the manuscript was real. The autobiography is a physical thing that exists. But did Verity do all of those bad things? Or did she actually take the advice of somebody and make it the opposite of what actually happened, the more evil way, and write herself as a villain to get her out of this writing slump, which I think is a very good idea. Now we don't know really, did that actually happen, because she could have been trying to manipulate her husband in the letter that Verity found. And of course the husband does not know about this letter, and it's all just very annoying. And I didn't really believe the romance between Lowen and husband, even though I imagined husband as Austin Nichols. Lust, sure. I mean, the guy had a comatose wife who he wasn't sleeping with and was falling out of love with, whatever, but I don't know, it seemed more of like this obsession type of thing. And you know the type if you've seen Lifetime movies. It's like, and of course everything comes full circle because Lowen is pregnant, and okay. And that is all that I read in January, besides maybe a couple of other books that I've tried to read a few pages of and then I just simply could not get into it, so we don't really count those. But everything else that I've read, either I've read completely or I've read a decent enough chunk to know why I don't like it, and I still want to tell you about it. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books. Be sure to, again, check out the Maybe Someday review that I did. I'll have it linked up here down below somewhere. If you are interested in more book content, I do have a Patreon page, so I would very much appreciate it if you wanted to sign up for that and get more content, and we can talk about books there. Because so far my Patreon people isn't really filled with people who are readers yet, I don't think, so I'm trying to build that up a little bit more. Be sure to subscribe if you have not yet. We're still going on with this channel and doing the goal that I wanted to, and hopefully eventually I will upgrade to like 2 uploads a week, hopefully within the next month or 2. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and I will see you later.